Line choice is a really important skill because it'll make or break the way you ride a trail. All of a sudden, things will get way easier to ride because you're going the right way down the hill. Number one thing you need to know is how to scan the trail. So where your head is looking is where you're going. If you're anticipating what's ahead and always looking far enough ahead down the trail that you know what's coming, and you're looking exactly where you want to go, then that's where you'll end up. So that's something you really need to think about and be mindful of. Number two is speed. The faster you go, the smoother it is. For more advanced riders, the reason everything is so much easier for them is because it really is that much easier. They're not hitting all these technical features that you are as a beginner. You're literally just floating over all the technical stuff. So the more comfortable you can get with speed and the faster you can ride over something, suddenly the easier that it will become. The third thing goes hand in hand with speed, and that's commitment. Never hesitate once you're in a line. Once you've chosen your line, commit to it. Anytime you hesitate, that's when you start to get sketchy and when crashes happen. So even if it's not the perfect line, just stick with it and ride it out, and you'll know the better line for next time. But never change your mind halfway through, because that's never a good thing. Now you have these three major tips. Let's take a look at how they can be applied to your average trail scenarios. And I'm going to use a few different examples like routes, rocks, and then technical features into turns. And you'll be able to see how your line choice really makes a world of a difference in these scenarios. If you live anywhere that has trees, one of the most technical trail features is routes. Now the thing about routes is they can be pretty complicated knowing where to go. So scanning the trail and looking ahead is really vital. For example, with this one, there's a few different options here. So if I'm coming in from the top here, there's a few options. I can go rider's left and I'm going high. When I go high up here, it's obviously like not the most smooth line possible, but it can be pretty fun for a more advanced rider because they're able to like air off it potentially and pop to the side and play around on the trail more. So it's a more playful line on the rider's left. On the rider's right, we have a more smooth, straightforward line. It's a little faster, cleaner. And if you're just trying to get down the trail fast and smooth, that's your overall goal, then this is the way you're going to want to go. Especially if it's rainy weather or really wet. I mean, if it's really wet out, you're not going to want to go up to the rider's left because it's just going to be so slippery and greasy, and that'll become apparent when you're riding in those conditions. Now, we want to come up here and look at what's ahead of these routes even, because scanning far ahead is a very important piece. Where you look is where you'll go. So right above the routes, we have a little route feature here too. And depending on where you ride off this is really going to set you up for the routes down there. If I'm coming to the right here, it might actually shoot me to the left on the next section because I'm just going to be lined up on an angle slightly. So if I'm a rider who likes to jump more and catch lots of air, I might go off to the right, jump off this, fly off that, and then jump over those next set of routes on the far left. If I'm just trying to get down smooth and fast, I might take it more inside. It's a little more clean and simple, a little more beginner, and then it's going to line me up completely straight for that next section of routes. And since I'm looking at least 20 feet ahead and I know what's coming, it's making it really obvious on what's ahead of me. And I'm not just going to be looking down at my handlebars and all of a sudden there's a pile of routes in front of me. That won't be a problem. I'm going to grab my bike now and ride this line in three different ways. I'm going to take the fast line, the more free ride line, and then I'm going to take a more advanced line that you might not expect. Let's check it out. Rock features like this are a great example of why hesitating is such a bad thing to do when it comes to line choice. Commitment is very important. So if you're a beginner and it's your first time coming up to a drop like this, you might not see it, and then you'll hesitate and go for it anyways and crash. Make sure this doesn't happen by riding around, or if you're already taking the wrong line, stop before you get to the edge, take a good look at it, and walk around. Now, another common line you can go is down here, and this is the more beginner line. So if you're scanning far ahead and looking at what's coming, you'll know right away that this is the way you should be going. It's a lot easier, it's rollable, so it's still a bit of a drop off, but you can roll your front wheel over that no problem and ride through. And if you're going nice and slow and taking it on the outside here where it's nice and smooth, then it should be no problem. I'm going to ride this a couple different ways so you can see what they look like and see for yourselves what the best line choice would be. Here's the view of the rock features from the top. As you can see, it's really hard to tell what they are from this high up. It's a little obvious that on the left it's a drop, but the right still looks like it drops off too. So this is the sort of thing that as a beginner you're really going to want to look at and walk first before even riding. Secondly, it's really important to commit to your line and scan ahead far up. So when I'm up here, I really need to know that if I'm going to the right, I gotta choose and I have to make that decision up here. So by the time I get down there, there's no hesitating, there's no changing my mind, and it'll just be a nice, smooth, consistent, and predictable line top to bottom. I have one more common feature for you, and that is technical turns and weird little lines into corners. This is the perfect example because it goes slightly uphill, and it's also a great example that clearly demonstrates that the shortest line is not always the fastest. So if you look over on the rider's left, that might look like the more straightforward line because it's no cornering, you're not riding up on the bank here, but it's actually going to be really easy to get caught up there and stuck. So the preferred line of choice would be come as outside as possible, stay high on this bank, and as you've learned from corners, you always want to enter high and exit low. That's going to give you that same line. You're going to come up high on it, exit it low up top, and it'll line you up for the next corner perfectly. Now that you have a really nice visual of how it looks to try different lines in different scenarios, everything from roots and rocks all the way to sketchy uphill corners, I want you to try riding all this stuff yourself and then get out there and practice drills. So decide what your biggest weakness is. It might be a root section, for example. Ride that section in 3 different ways and decide what the smoothest line is for you and what works for you the best with your riding style. Remember the 3 key things to always keep in your mind when you're riding through lines. Number 1 is never hesitate. Number 2, go as fast as you possibly can. And finally, always look where you want to go. Where you look is where you'll end up.